Hello, my friend. Welcome to the Office. In Luke chapter 16, Jesus tells a parable. And he tells a parable about an unnamed man who lives in wealth and extravagantly. And he's well fed and he's well dressed and he lives in a palatial structure. And out by his gate is a poor man who's actually named. His name is Lazarus. And he's not the Lazarus who was raised from the dead by Jesus' power, but it's another Lazarus. And this Lazarus is contrasted with the rich man who lives in his palatial structure and is well-fed and wealthy. But this man, Lazarus, is poor. He's impoverished, and he begs at the gate. And not only is he poor, but he's actually in ill health. And he has sores, and he's not being taken care of. And he just desires to live off the scraps of that wealthy man's table. And of course, we hear this parable spoken by Jesus, and we immediately resonate with the fact that it's just not right. Here is a wealthy man who has ability, availability, and opportunity, and he does nothing to help his fellow man. And the need is right in front of him. And of course, we hear that story, and we immediately resonate. Our inner man just says, that's not right. Of course, if we turn our pages of the scripture back just a little bit to Luke chapter 10, we'd read another parable that Jesus spoke. And this was about a man who is unnamed, but he's traveling from city to city. And en route in his travels, he is attacked by robbers. He is beaten. He's left half dead. I don't know what half dead is, but it's not good. He's beaten up and he's robbed. And he's left for dead alongside the road. And of course, people come by and they encounter this man in need, and they pass him by. They don't do anything about helping him out. And then, of course, the Samaritan comes by, and this is the parable of the Good Samaritan. The Samaritan comes by, lifts the man up, puts him on his donkey, takes him to the hotel, checks him into the hotel, applies medication and bandages to his wound, and begins to nurse this man back to health. His availability runs out. He has to leave, but he continues to care for this man through the innkeeper, and he provides for the man's need through another. And he says, I'll take care of all the expenses when I get back. And we hear that story, and we go, oh, that's a good neighbor. That's a man who cares for his fellow man and does what he can to care for another. Now, normally we hear these parables, and we make the application to ourselves. But let's take a moment and make the application to God himself. What would we think of God, the most powerful being in the universe, if he saw people in distress and in great need and he did nothing? And on the flip side of that, what would we think of God if he saw people in distress and in great need and he acted on their behalf mercifully and graciously and at great cost to himself to heal and restore and see them flourish and be healthy? What would we think of a God like that? And of course, we know that's what God has done on our behalf. Jesus Christ himself, he uses metaphors, and he describes himself as the good shepherd who lays down his life for the sheep. And in John chapter 15, he talks about there's no greater love than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And you are my friends, Jesus says. And we know that God, based on his own nature and character, he's compassionate and loving and gracious and merciful and kind and slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. God has acted on our behalf at great cost to himself to rescue us from our peril, from our distress. Our sin, which was against him and was egregious, so egregious that the redemption price was the cost of the life of his own son, the blood of his own son, because our sin is so horrible. That's what the redemption price would be. And God himself, of course, has supplied that and secured that. And Jesus Christ had acted on our behalf to rescue us from our peril. And it's just tremendous. And so typically when you think through these parables and we apply them to ourselves, we're like, yeah, are we a good Samaritan? Are we a good neighbor? Are we like the man behind the gate, not caring for the people outside of us who we have opportunity to care for? But if we think these through about God, and then we hear what Jesus has to say, we recognize that God is great and worthy of great honor and praise because of who he is and because of what he's done. So anyways, I was encouraged by these passages of scripture today. I trust that you will be encouraged as well. And the Lord willing, I'll circle back with some more encouragement as the week goes by. But trust that you have a good day, and we'll look forward to seeing you sometime soon. God bless.